guys, so today we're going to read a poem by a famous poet from the 1920s Harlem Renaissance, and we're going to go through the poem, kind of figure out what the deeper meaning is throughout each line. And before we do that, I want you guys to think about some starter questions on your own. And so I want you guys to think about, what does equality mean to you, and what does the American dream mean to you? So pause the video and think on your own, what does equality and the American dream as a whole, what is that, and what does it mean to you personally? All right, so like I said, we are going to read through a poem. It's called I Too by Langston Hughes. And Langston Hughes is an extremely well-known, famous African-American poet and writer from the 1920s Harlem Renaissance. And he was a big activist on, racial pride, equality. He really tried to relay messages to people of not just like the African American community, but also like the white community about, what African Americans were going through at this time during the 1920s through like segregation, the American dream, equality. And he was really well known for just, being a leader during this time and, expressing his opinions and being a very creative artist. And so we're going to go through his poem today and go line by line and kind of figure out what the meaning is behind this poem. And I want to remind you guys and let you guys know this from the beginning, that when we go through each line, that we are going to observe it and kind of interpret it ourselves and figure out what the deeper meaning is. And so I want you guys to know that there's no right or wrong answer on what you think the meaning is. Because with art, you observe it and you take it in from your personal connections and you relate to it and connect to it on your own. So what you think and what I think could be completely different. And with art, you can look at, a quote, you can look at books, you can look at poems. I have some album covers up here, and an artist drew this or made this on the computer. So just artwork in general, those are all different forms of art and pictures. And so the way I look at those, album covers, I might interpret what the artist is trying to do and relay a message differently than when you think. So just throughout the video, remind yourself that there's no right or wrong answer. And when we go through this poem, I'm going to ask you guys some questions, kind of like what you think each line means, and then I'm going to tell you what Langston Hughes was trying to express through each line. And even if what you think and what Langston was trying to say don't kind of match up, that's okay, because again, you're the observer and you're interpreting this piece of art with your connections and what you personally feel. So just remind yourself that through the whole video, there's no right or wrong answer. So I'm going to read this through once for you guys. And it says, I too sing American. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen. Then, besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am American. So I want you guys to pause the video and think to yourselves, just kind of hearing it once through, what do you think this poem might be about? So think about this on your own and pause the video. And so our first line says, I too sing American. So what do you think this line means? And what do you think Langston meant by him saying, I sing American? So pause the video, think about this on your own. And so what Langston, he's trying to say here is, it means not only whites are American, but also African Americans are just as equally Americans too. And that they are citizens of the United States and that they should be treated equally. And so that's kind of what Langston is trying to get his point across with this line right here. So our next line says, I am the darker brother. So what do you think Langston is trying to say in the line, I am the darker brother? What do you think the deeper meaning behind just him saying that he's dark and that he's black? What is the deeper meaning do you think that he's trying to say? So pause the video and think about this on your own. So this line is kind of saying that he is black, he is African American, he's not white, but he is just as equally American, and kind of trying to reinforce that he is dark and he is black and African American, but he is 100% equally just American as anyone else is. And that's what he's trying to get his point across, again, from the first line to this line. And so our next line, actually lines, it's 3 through 7 that we're going to look at here. And it says, they send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. So now I want you guys to think about, why is he getting sent to the kitchen, and who is sending him to the kitchen? And I want you also to think about the lines that say, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Do you think he's literally trying to say here that he eats food, he gets nutrition to become strong? Or is there a deeper meaning behind that? So pause the video and think about this on your own. So in the lines when it says, they send me to eat in the kitchen, Langston is referring to a domestic worker, which is someone who is employed by a household and kind of does like the household chores, and gets paid to basically be like a servant or a butler. Servant is kind of more of a harsher term to say than butler, but it's saying like he's kind of like help, basically. And so he's getting sent into the kitchen from a white family. And this is because during this time there's segregation. And segregation is basically African Americans were not allowed to eat at the same table as a white person. They weren't allowed to go through the same entrance or exit as a white person. They couldn't use the same public restroom. They couldn't use the same water fountain. And so this is trying to explain that there is segregation and that he is getting sent away from the white people to go have his dinner. And then when he starts talking about, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong, this is referring to basically African Americans going through the hardships, the struggles of segregation, but he's laughing at it, knowing that he will continue to grow strong and come out better, and hopefully segregation will be over, and he'll be a better, stronger person because of it. And so that's kind of what he's explaining here, is that there's segregation, it's happening, but he will still become, or still is becoming strong and is strong just by going through those hardships. So then our next lines, we have 8 through 14. It says, tomorrow I'll be at the table. When company comes, nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen. So we just talked a little bit about what segregation was. And so I want you guys to think about the word tomorrow. Do you think he's referring that tomorrow, like the very next day, segregation was going to end? Or do you think he's referring to like the future? And then I also want you guys to think about what it means that he says, nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen. What is he meaning behind that? So tomorrow in these lines, it refers to not the very next day, it refers to the future. So he's trying to look more into the future, that, segregation is going to be over at some point. It's going to end. And that he's going to, people are going to see, white people are going to see that, they're just as equal, and that they should be able to share the same table, share the same restaurant, share the same restrooms, that everything should be equal, and that there will not be segregation anymore. And that it'll become kind of a normal thing, and no one will say you have to eat somewhere else or go do something just because a white person's in the room, or a black person's in the room, and that they can do it equally at the same time, and they can share like a space. So, and it's referring to that, it'll be over, it'll pass, segregation will pass, and that it'll be normal to have blacks and whites in the same room, doing the same activity, eating, at a coffee shop or whatever they're doing, they're equally able to do the same thing. So then the next line says, 15 through 17, besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. So, what do you think Langston is referring to here? What do you think the deeper meaning is? Do you guys think he's referring to himself, just himself as a black person, or as the African American community as a whole? because it says they'll see how beautiful I am. Is he referring to just himself or just as a whole, the African American community? And I also want you guys to think back to that starter question: what does equality mean to you? I want you guys to think about, do you think he's referring to equality in this line? So think about that on your own. So these lines, it's stating that African Americans, he's trying to say that African Americans aren't bad. He's trying to say that they're good. They're just as good as white people. And he's trying to like relay the message that people will recognize that African Americans are equal, and they will feel bad. White people will feel bad about the way they treated African Americans through segregation, and that at some day, tomorrow, in the future, they will see this and see that, you know, African Americans are beautiful, and so are every other race. You know, there's Hispanics, Asians, you know, Indian, all these other races too, that they're just as equal, and everyone's beautiful, and even if you're not white, you know, and that a white person shouldn't just feel like entitled and empowered, and that everyone should feel empowered and beautiful and strong, and everyone will see that and see equality, and that everyone's equal. And so then our last line, it says, I too am American. So earlier I asked, what do you think the American dream is? And so what do you think Langston's American dream is for African Americans? So I want you guys to think about that on your own, and also think, what was the deeper meaning behind this whole poem and what it means to say that I too am American. So think about this on your own. So with this last line, he's trying to wrap up with this poem that he's stating again, he's African American, he's black, he is not white, but he too is 100% equally as American as any other person, any other white person, and that African Americans should be treated equally and there should not be segregation. And so with the whole poem itself, Langston is trying to get the point across that there is segregation, there is, you know, not having equality among different races, and that eventually, you know, it's going to pass and all these hardships are going to go strong, and people are going to recognize, you know, white people are going to recognize that African Americans are just as equal, and white people are going to feel ashamed of the way they treated the African Americans. And so he's trying to just, you know, get across the message that segregation will end, and it's just going to help grow African Americans, and people will see them equally one day. And again, this is from the 1920s, and so this is his perspective of kind of what he felt like African Americans were feeling, and he's trying to, you know, be an activist and express and show that, you know, African Americans do deserve equality and don't deserve to go through segregation anymore. And so now I want you guys to do a little assignment. I want you guys to think about a hard time you've been through, something you struggled with, or a time that you felt alone and you didn't feel like you had anyone. And I want you guys to think about a piece of artwork. And this could be a quote, this could be a poem, it could be a picture, it could be a song. Please make sure, though, that these are school appropriate. There's no cuss words if you're using a song or a poem or a quote. The pictures, make sure they're school appropriate, not inappropriate at all. And I want you guys to kind of analyze and go through whatever piece of artwork you choose, and think about what the meaning behind it is, what the artist was trying to send a message, what their meaning was, and then you think about what the meaning is to yourself and how you personally connect to it, and what you think the meaning is, and how this helped you get through your hard time, through your struggle, or through whenever you felt super alone and that you didn't have anybody. And so get creative with this, have fun with it. It should be fun because, you know, you're relating art. You can use a rap song, something fun that you really like, and just have fun, connect to yourselves with it, and just analyze some art for a deeper meaning that connects to yourself. And so I hope you guys have fun with it.